Hi, my name's Jack, founder of PosterSpy.com, and welcome to another Let's Talk Art video. This time we're in Berlin, Germany, to chat to 3D artist Alexia Rubod. So, let's talk art. So firstly, Alexia, thank you so much for joining me on Let's Talk Art.
Thank you for having me.
So firstly, I basically want to talk about the fact that for the last few years you've been moving around France, Germany, Switzerland whilst freelancing. But you're going to be going to LA soon to further your career as a freelancer.
Try
to. That could be quite a scary thing for a lot of people, to go somewhere completely new without really knowing anybody and just trying things. What encouraged you to make that decision?
Honestly, it's not scary for me either. But this one great thing about being a freelance is just the freedom to do that kind of stuff, is the freedom to move around and work from wherever. And I feel like if you can do it financially, work-wise, etc., there is no reason why not. I feel like the great thing about being a freelance is obviously the freedom of it, and it's this great feeling of being able to decide one day because it feels right, because it feels like it could be the next move, to just pack your things and say, yeah, I might need to spend a couple of months in this place. Might be good, or maybe you have studios that contacting you in that case. I feel like it's always a good thing to go and meet the people in person. I feel like it makes a huge difference. So if I can go somewhere and meet with studios and make opportunities happen, I will try to do it.
And would you recommend that other freelancers take the same kind of action and go to different places?
Definitely, and not just freelancers, anybody that could have the opportunity. Just go out of your life and see what's out there and go meet people.
So how old were you when you decided you wanted to pursue a career in 3D?
It's a tough question because it's not as if you woke up one day and be like, I'm going to be a 3D artist. Because first of all, like a lot of people, I used not to know a lot about 3D, so I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into. I always knew, on the other hand, that I was going to work in something related to art, because I've been, the kind of child that starts to draw one day and just keeps doing it until I was a teenager, and then, high school, college, etc.
So was there anything about the world of 3D that stood out to you and made you really want to pursue it? Well,
since I had this traditional art background, I've been always passionate with shape and colors and painting and sculpting, and then 3D gave me the impression that I was taking it a step further, because all of a sudden you're in this virtual world and anything is pretty much possible with an imagery that is a little bit more graspable than just a drawing. I mean, I still think that illustration and 2D art is great in a completely different way, but just going a little bit closer to matter and, materials, being able to sculpt a face in 3D and put some lights on it, it was just a feeling of, taking things to another level, and that was a great feeling.
So you studied at MOPA until 2015. Where you got your master's degree in 3D animation. What do you feel was most beneficial about learning at a higher level?
Well, just the fact that there is so much to learn. Like, for 5 years, it was pretty much non-stop, because first you have all of your traditional art skills to build up. You have to learn perspective, anatomy, the shape and colors, how do you frame a picture, art history. We had some English courses as well. So there's that in the first place, and then there's all of the technical 3D aspects, because you have more than one software to learn, And that's just a big amount of knowledge that you have to have in that amount of time. And I think that 5 years was, I couldn't imagine doing this in less than 5 years, actually.
And obviously doing 3D involves often a team of people to work behind something. What's it like being part of a team and working on projects and seeing things come to life? And is there anything you recommend about working in teams like that?
I think it's completely essential to be able to work in a team when you do that work, because in most cases you're going to be part of a pipeline where your work is just a tiny part of a bigger work, and you're going to have to be able to communicate with your teammates. You're going to have to be able to be open to critics, and it's a lot more of a social job than what people might think, because if you're extremely talented but you just work in your little place and you're incapable of communicating with other people, it's going to make your life and other people's life in a studio, for example, extremely hard.
A lot of people get the idea that you can do 3D art, and a lot of people just do it on their own and learn themselves.
Exactly.
They don't consider the
exactly. And a lot of people arrive in the school and be like, I'm going to be better than anybody else. Sometimes you're just an average artist, but because it's so nice and it's so easy to communicate with you, and people see that you want to improve and you want, you know, more, and you're trying to please people in the way you're acting, then this guy is going to have a lot more work.
What kind of tips would you give to aspiring artists wanting to pursue a career in 3D? Is there anything that you found particularly beneficial that you could encourage other people to do?
I would say the important thing to keep in mind is not to be too intimidating by the first time you're going to start learning 3D, because I know it can seem very technical and boring, and you just have all of these informations at once, and it can be very discouraging because all the things that you enjoyed in traditional art illustration kind of fades away for a while, just for this time, this learning process. But it will come back. It will come back, and you will have more tools and more possibilities to in your artistic process. So there's this one phase that is a little bit difficult, and I would say just stick through it, and then you will see if 3D is actually something for you or not.
Are there any particular resources you can recommend for people wanting to learn 3D, or things that have helped you at least?
I think that having always references under your eye is something super important, because if you want to reproduce a texture, a fabric, something that comes from real life, you have to know what it looks like. And most of the time you think that you know, but it's so easy to make a table that is too thick, that looks off, or have a texture that is too big. It's very common mistakes. So look at things around you, get pictures, make yourself boards, put it next to your screen, and have this under your eye. Now for sculpting, for example, I have something that I've discovered recently. It's a book called Anatomy for Sculptors that I generally have next to me when I'm working, just because you're always going to go back to anatomy references to place muscles, to see how exactly the nostril looks like, stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good tool. There are similar ones, but I think this one is pretty intuitive and works pretty well for a 3D artist.
During your time in France, you worked on Despicable Me 3. You worked on over 70 characters, on hair and fur. And this is a big movie, and how did it feel contributing to such a huge production, and what was it like day to day?
Yeah, obviously it was really great to work on such a big project. You know, when the movie finally comes out and you see your name in the credits and everything, it's great. It's almost of a childish feeling of excitement. But also, I feel like it was a very good year for me, because I had such a good experience with the team that I was working with. it was a lot smoother, coming into such a big studio than I expected, because the way it was organized and the way we communicated, it was overall a really good experience.
And you worked on a ton of characters. Were there any that you particularly liked working on the most?
Well, it was a ton of character because in such a big movie, you have crowds, people walking in the streets everywhere, so every single person has to be worked on. But some people you're gonna spend just a couple days, and some characters are more important than other. And for example, there's this one scene that takes place in the forest, where I work on 2 animals, a deer and a fox. And the 2 animals were really fun to make because the fur of animals in particular is another process of a hair than the hairstyle, for example. So those 2 were fun. And there was this one character that I needed to put more attention to because it was the main villain, Balthazar Brat. And yeah, it was a big responsibility, so I was terrified at first, but being part of this character was really fun.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your graduation film, Anna. You used a bunch of programs to make the film: Maya, 3ds Max, ZBrush, Mari, Yeti, and probably others. That's a lot of programs to work in. How was it working on that project, and what was your role?
So my role was, first, I had the original idea of the project, like the very base that got then developed by the whole team. And then I was in charge of setting the whole technical pipeline in the way that when we first started, we didn't know exactly what the final image was going to look like, what kind of lighting, what was going to be the style, how much detail we're going to put into the textures and everything. So I ran some tests to kind of decide, okay, this is going to be the look of the movie. Then I did the part of the lighting, rendering, compositing, and I was mainly in charge of the 3 characters. So I worked on that for a while.
Working across those different programs, was there anything you found particularly challenging or something you learned from it?
Learning that program Yeti to do the hair wasn't easy because it was the first time that we were using it. For the hair of the little girl, something that was a little bit tricky is the fact that she has long, I mean not long, but it's not short as a animal fur, long curly hair, and it wasn't really possible to do that with fully with Yeti. So I went kind of back and forth with Yeti and another software called Ornatrix, where I built the curly aspect of the hair in Ornatrix, and then I exported everything in the Maya and Yeti. And that was completely experimental in that way, but it worked out in the end.
The film eventually went on to festivals and got nominated for some awards and won some. Mm-hmm. That must feel pretty good knowing that you're technically an award-winning 3D artist.
Yeah, it feels really good, of course. But it feels a little bit unreal too, in a way, because the film kind of travels on its own. It goes to country, festival to festival, because we all had professional lives and we couldn't go with it in every festival that it was nominated. So you don't really realize all of those people who see it, who judge it, and when you receive the news of an award that you just won, it's kind of like, oh, okay. So yes, in that way it was really cool, and I really do hope that in the future I get the opportunity to work on other projects like that.
So Alexia, this is a project called Amethyst, which you did for ArtStation as part of a challenge online. Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, So the way the challenge go is that you have two parts. You have the first part for the concept artists with the character design and environment design, etc. Challenges. It's always around the theme. This time the theme was ancient civilization lost and found. And then the second part is the challenges for the 3D artist render or game. And you have the same, like the character, the environment. I wanted to do first the concept challenge, the character design challenge, not because I'm a character designer, which I'm not, but I wanted to push the concept a little bit further. And I thought that way I could have a project that would be a bit more well-rounded, where I took it from scratch and then push it in 3D. And I had this idea, but I thought it would be nice to kind of play around with it in 2D first. So that's why I did, for the character design challenge, you had to come up with 10 characters. You have 5 villains and 5 heroes. And I had this idea of working with the gemstones. I kind of wanted to mix flesh and crystal. I had this idea of a broken character. But at first I wasn't sure which crystal, which type of character I was gonna go for. So I was like, okay, let's do this challenge, the character design challenge. And that way I can experiment, I can get some feedback from the community, and I can see which one would actually be nicer to push in 3D.
And then the Amethyst piece, once you had the idea you wanted and you knew that was the one you wanted to start with, what did you start with first?
So you start from a concept. So what I like to do is start by drawing a model sheet, just so that I know exactly the proportion of the character, where I'm going. That way I'm going to be coherent with the front and the side of the character. And I know where I'm going to draw the cracks. So I just know where I'm going. And I place this in my 3D view, and I start shaping the character from it. After that, I just go straight into the base mesh in 3ds Max. And I model the character in T-pose, so like this, in a neutral and symmetrical pose. I have it over here. There you go.
So once you took it into ZBrush and you had your concept and your model, how long did you spend sort of perfecting it and altering it and really sculpting it?
In ZBrush. That took a few days because you have all of the details of the body, like the hands, the face, and everything, obviously. And then all those cracks that she carries on her body, it took me a while, actually, because it was very simple and repetitive work, but she has them all over her body. And I tried different brushes to go a little bit faster, but in the end it just looked a lot better with the very straightforward approach of just sculpting everything.
And the thing is, as well, I suppose you have to try and make it look organic as you can.
Yeah.
And that can be tricky, I suppose.
That was the goal. I had a lot of references just for the cracks, because that's the thing, when you're sculpting, you want to have references under your eyes at all time, because otherwise you're just gonna be uneven and you're not gonna have the right proportions, because even if you have a general idea of, for example, what an arm or a hand looks like, you're gonna need something to be like, oh, okay, so there's this line here, there's this muscle there, and it's very important to know where you're going at all times.
So in terms of the anatomy and the body modeling for this, what kind of helped you to bring this to life?
In terms of anatomy, you have first your general knowledge, the things that you learn at school when you do traditional art and stuff. But then, as I said, it's always a matter of having references under your eyes at all times. Like you have a lot of websites where you can get good references of naked bodies under all of the different angles. You have a lot of books that describes anatomy, every muscle, everything very well. So I got help from that a lot.
Something like this seems really quite complicated in terms of bringing in all the textures, like you said, the skin diffusion, elements like that. Like even adding things like moles and spots and elements like that, which a lot of the time are overlooked. You don't see, people see them and just think, oh, that's just part of the model. But obviously everything takes so much time.
Yeah.
Is there a reason when you did this that you decided to go to that extra level and add all these extra elements?
Well, it's really just a personal preference. Some people, they're gonna hate going into a character of that level of detail, and they're gonna want to make things a little bit wider. For example, environment artists, like obviously you can go into details when it comes to environment, but I just like to be very close of things. For some reason, I like to catch the tiny little elements on something and push it as far as I can.
This project was really well received. You know, people on ArtStation really enjoyed it, and it placed third. Have you felt that taking part in this and the sort of community feedback and everything, and how well this was sort of pushed out by so many different networks and so many different people get to see it, do you feel that's aided you in your career as a 3D artist?
Yeah, completely. It was a sort of a turn for me because I was starting this whole freelancer thing. And obviously when you go into something all by yourself, you're full of uncertainties, and when you're very junior, it's hard to feel very confident about your work. And this made me feel like if I'm really committed to something, and if I feel like something could be a good idea, if I've put a lot of work into it, it could actually work. And obviously it made me feel very confident about this project in particular, but also that what I was worth as an artist. So that was yeah, an important part of my actual path.
Well, Alexia, thanks so much for having us and talking us through your projects and being part of the Let's Talk Art series.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.